I do have God in my life. And I do not feel he's gonna do me wrong for the decisions I may make, because it truly, to me, feels like it's what I'm meant to do. All the signs and how it all worked, without this, like, I wouldn't be able to care for my daughter and all the things that it's brought me to do. And I found along that way a loving boyfriend that supports everything that I do. I would never thought I would find love being a corn star.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Bridge on the Dr. Daff Show. My name is Dr. Michelle Daff, and I'm honored to be your host for this conversation here on The Bridge. We aim to bring together women from different walks of life to explore their perspectives, share their experiences, and find common ground, even when it feels like worlds apart. Today, we are having a conversation that is sure to be thought-provoking. We're sitting down with two groups of women who live vastly different lives, but are each guided by different sets of values, morals, beliefs, and personal experiences that shape their choices, from female sex workers to female pastors. In this space, we are not necessarily here to judge or to debate whose choices are right or wrong. Instead, we're here to listen, to understand, and uncover the stories behind the labels, behind the women. What drives their decisions? How do they each view each other? And can they find shared truths in their journeys as women? I encourage you to keep an open heart and mind as we navigate this discussion together. With that being said, let's meet our guests. Thank you, ladies, for all being here today. The first question we have is, I believe my work has a positive impact on society.
This might be kind of out there, but I feel genuinely that being a corn star is positive to society. I feel there's a lot of men, women out there that we do have these sexual desires that nobody tends to want to talk about, but we all know it's true. And I feel like something like porn is a way to kind of release that horniness you may have. Sometimes we don't have like a significant other or someone we're together with, and maybe you don't like going to like a bar or something to meet with somebody and get that connection going. So something like porn, speeds up the process. You can get yourself going and be able to release what you need to. And I think that's positive. Self-love is very positive.
I love the work that I get to do. I never thought I was going to be a pastor, so I use this phrase that God can use anybody, because if he could pick me, he can use anyone. I'm specifically working women's ministry. And so I get the opportunity to empower women on a daily basis, and to see women come in and they may be low in confidence, and through Bible studies and through worship and just the community and sisterhood of other women accepting them with similar stories, and just to see those transformations, for me, it lets me know that I'm making a positive impact through my gifts, but also the calling of God on my life. So, yes.
The same way I believe a pastor's role is to guide and support and heal, I feel like I am so proud of the work I do, not only because it's a creative endeavor for me that like gives me life, it's also a space where I feel like I'm able to, again, help reclaim people's desires, which might, for a lot of people, be repressed, be feelings that are usually associated with guilt and insecurity and a lot of like pain and anguish. Well, some may say it's ridiculous, to kind of feel that in that type of entertainment. I feel like if we as like pastors and adult content creators can agree, there is so much power in healing the mind, body, and spirit, and that's what I truly believe I do.
Thank you. Well, I know that I started ministering on Skid Row and in the prisons, and I know I saw those situations and the hurt and the pain, and the Lord says that he came to give us life and life more abundantly. So I was able to minister to them the Word of God, the love of Jesus, that they had very a lot of them have very bad home lives, and it was only Jesus who heals and gives you that true love that you desire and that true relationship that satisfies. So through praise and worship and reading the Word and laying hands on people and praying over people, it's like you impart the presence of the Lord and they just receive His love and His peace in this very dark and chaotic world.
Thank you.
I definitely think that the industry we work with and how we explore gives a chance to maybe explore new options safely instead of going out there. There's a lot of research you can do on your own from what we've done and just videos as well to see if maybe you want to explore new sexual things that maybe or hesitant or shamed by another person. You can explore them yourself, and I feel like our industry helps with that, definitely. Or at least I know it's definitely helped me.
Thank you. I have been judged unfairly because of my profession. Okay, thank you.
Honestly, everyone in my life has been super accepting. I actually use the money that I make from my OnlyFans. I used it to start a nonprofit dog rescue. And even my volunteers, when they find out what I do, like, they're surprised. They're like, you of all people, but but everyone's been really cool about it. I have not had one person in my life, I guess, that mattered. There's always going to be people on the internet that say nasty things, but no one in my immediate life was at all judgmental. People were concerned and they asked questions about it and they were curious, but you know, I think the nature in which they go into the conversation is what matters. You know, even if they say something that's a little off-putting, it's usually just out of a place of not knowing. And so yeah, I don't think anyone in my life has really taken it negatively. Even my grandma.
Lucky.
So your work, you use it to fund a nonprofit. That's like the purpose of the sex work that you do?
Yeah. Yeah, there's no other way to make the same kind of money without at least a bunch of student debt.
Thank you.
So I voted yes. I felt judged and occasionally do. And what's funny is it's not from people outside of the Christian community. It's from people within the Christian community. Because, you know, you have these preconceptions and you have regurgitated knowledge or teachings rather that aren't necessarily accurate to what the scriptures say. And this is why you have that whole thing of the Bible contradicts itself. Well, you're not reading it in context. So for me, when I encounter, you know, someone older or just people on the internet, you're a woman, you shouldn't be speaking, you're supposed to submit to your husband, all this stuff. And I'm like, but God said He uses all, that He will pour out His Spirit on all flesh. So it's just interesting how, because Jesus did it, he went to the Pharisees, the so-called teachers, and called them out. So it's just interesting how that happens, but God is like, I've called you, not them. And I'm seeing how He works.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So you see people who say that you should not even be a pastor because you're a woman.
Or not even say it, just, you're a pastor?
Read it between.
And it's like, it's from someone that you would want to naturally confide in. So you've been doing this for so long. Please give me some advice. But the turning of the nose, you're like, no, I'm not even gonna ask.
I really say this with just from experience, but I do find within the Christian community can be very judgmental. And for my example, I grew up with parents who are religious. Me as myself, got baptized Christian, all that good stuff. And what's crazy though is my biggest judgment makers on me are my parents who are religious people. And it's wild to me, you know, people that are supposed to be so loving and accepting can have such nasty things to say. And it's like, but is that what God would do? You know, so I really do, you know, feel for that because it's so true. Sometimes it's your own people that have the biggest say in what you do versus like a stranger not knowing if they're religious or not. They just see this person that's genuinely happy and they're like, what? It's like, dude, I'm just doing what I'm called to do, what I love. And like you said, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because God is going to put you in the right position, regardless of what the book says.
If people are a little unfamiliar with my story, I got into the industry in kind of an like off-kilter way, I got on a podcast and I talked about like really crazy sex stories. One of them was getting gangbanged. And at the time I wasn't a mainstream corn performer. I was just an OnlyFans girl. And I remember kind of like, as I was shooting up the ranks of popularity, I had so much internal beef from my own community that was like, you're not a real corn star, you're just a content creator, you're not actually part of this industry just yet. You know, you haven't paid your dues, you didn't do all the work into it. And I remember just being like, what's that gotta do? I mean, we're all showing whole, honestly. But of course, but I feel like sometimes when I approach people, I feel like I have to prove something. I have to say like, you know, I also did this, I also was on Forbes, I also accomplished this, that. I feel like I have a pressure to like come bigger as I am, so that way people have to respect people like me sometimes.
There have been times when I questioned my career choice. Yes or no?
I had to think about it.
Okay.
I never questioned it, and I had an interesting story. So I'm a licensed attorney, and I left being a lawyer. I mean, I'm still technically a lawyer, but I just don't practice to do this, and I've never looked back. I think being kind of back to like a little bit of the first prompt, I think being an example of someone who defies those stereotypes, kind of what you were just talking about, oh, sex workers are not intelligent, or that this is a last resort. And it was always a first resort for me. I was like, this lifestyle seems so much better. I have freedom, I have happiness, and just being an example of someone who lives life on their terms and lives a life conducive to their own happiness. I love being that, and I love advocating for this community, especially as someone who came from such a, I guess, prestigious, privileged community into one of the most marginalized community. I love the fact that I can help this community. I feel like that work is so much more meaningful to me than being an attorney ever was.
What about it makes it meaningful to you?
I think just doing that, destigmatizing it, breaking those stereotypes, doing what I can. I mean, eventually I want to use my degree and my license to give back to this community in whatever way that I can. And the fact that I love the fact that this has given me the opportunity to pursue the things I really want to do, like the life I really want to live. Like more like slow living has always been something I wanted to do. I never wanted to do the 9 to 5, but I thought there was no way out. And this was a way out, and once I saw it, there was no going back for me.
I have questioned it, and I had to get my way to that understanding, because coming in, like, I'm a little bit older than most that start off in this kind of career. I'm 31, and as well, you know, established, you know, going to school, doing all that, and I kind of hit a bottom when I went through like a breakup, and kind of had to worry about myself and my daughter, and I had to make these choices. So I'm gonna be honest, like, it definitely was a moment where I had to like, am I making the right choice? Am I doing what's best for me and my daughter in this exact moment? And then it took that, making that step, and then kind of submerging myself in this lifestyle where now I feel comfortable. But I had to really make that judgment first, because I didn't know what was to come. You're kind of like, you know, you hear all these things, all these stigmas, and you're like, I don't know, what if this, what if that? And then now that I'm here, it's the best decision I've made, but I did have some self-doubts.
I think being a woman pastor in America is interesting. I was born in Lebanon, grew up in Sri Lanka, and grew up under the care of a single mom who was a pastor, but she didn't get a title or get paid for it. I think seeing her, I always wanted to be like her, you know, to empower others and to live a life that is empowering and loving and healing, as you guys mentioned. But I think moving here, found a whole new side of women should not be pastors, should stay at home, raise children. That was interesting. So it's been a complicated journey, but I would say God has also used men, interestingly, to empower me and to step into that space. So it's been a complicated journey.
And I think I said to God, I go, God, I'm the wrong gender. You made me the wrong gender for this call and for what I do, because it's so accepted for a man to do this, but not for a woman. And so I have meetings twice a week, and there's a church up the street, and they sent 2 men to my meeting, and they said, well, what are you called to do? And I said, well, in addition to pastoring, I'm called to evangelize to the nations. Well, then about a couple of weeks later, I happened to go to that church. The pastor's right in front of me, and he said, no woman is called to evangelize to the nations. Ooh. And I just, like, I was so sweet and so nice. Like, I didn't know that. As he's talking to me, I go, wait a minute. And I put two and two together. And then he came up with every woman before was in the wrong. For example, Catherine Coleman, Amy Simple McPherson. And this was a Foursquare church. Mm-hmm. So there's some very strong, hard views against women. I will do a whole church service and somebody will come up to me and said, don't you know a woman's not supposed to pastor? Or don't you know a woman's not supposed to preach or teach? And so even when I say Pastor Gemma, like I don't use it a lot because there's so much attitude toward that. But I know that I'm pleasing the Lord, and this is what God has called me to do. So my glory is from God and not from man.
Thank you for sharing that. That was a good point there. However, speaking of faith, as a mom, life can get really busy. Between taking care of my son, managing a household, and juggling everything else, finding time to stay connected to God throughout the day can be a real challenge. Let's face it, let's be real. I've often struggled to carve out those quiet, meaningful moments to pray, reflect, or just sit with God's word. That's where Aura has been such a blessing in my life. It's not just another mindfulness app. It's a personalized tool that helps me prioritize my faith in the middle of my busy schedule. Aura has an incredible variety of Christian content like prayers, Bible teachings, worship songs, reflections, and meditations, all designed to uplift and inspire. One of my favorite routines is taking walks with my son in his stroller, and I'll put on my Aura, play a prayer or a reflection from my custom playlist, which you should check out, and it's like I'm recentering myself spiritually while spending time with God. At night, I use the app to listen to calming scripture-based meditations, prayers, and songs that help me relax and get the peaceful sleep that I need. And the best part, I've created a special playlist just for you. It's filled with my favorite Christian tracks, prayers, songs, and teachings that I absolutely love. The voice is so soothing and inspiring, and they've truly helped me deepen my connection with God. You can find my playlist linked in the video description below. Now, here's my challenge for you. If you're like me, juggling a busy schedule, but still yearning to stay spiritually connected with God, then join me in a 30-day Christian faith-based meditation challenge where every day you set aside just a few moments to spend time in prayer, worship, or meditating or relaxing in the Word using my custom Aura playlist. It does not have to be complicated or perfect. Simply press play and let the beautiful prayers, calming voices, and uplifting Bible teachings guide you. This playlist is designed to help you start 2025 with the right mindset and make connecting with God a meaningful part of your daily life. You can access it by clicking the link in my description. Start your free 7-day trial today, and the first 500 people will also receive an exclusive 25% discount. Let's take this journey together, one day, one prayer, one step at a time. You've got this. Did any of you ladies see yourself doing the work that you were doing when you were children? Okay. I want to hear from you.
Yes, so I totally knew that this was going to be my calling. As a kid, as soon as I would want to say middle school, as soon as I did middle school, which sounds so weird. But I knew I was always a sexual person and that I wanted to kind of just show my personality out in the world in that way. I really like the creativity, the freedom it gives me to do exactly what I want to do. I couldn't have imagined any other job, maybe like a travel vlogger, but I want to do both at the same time. So, and it's possible. It gives so much flexibility. I just love everything about the job. I'm a paralegal outside of this, so I went back to doing that. But it just wasn't as fulfilling and fun as what I do now. So after like 2 years of doing the paralegal, I was like, you know what? I know this is what I wanted to do. This has always been what I wanted to do. So I went back, and it's allowed me so many open opportunities. I've been able to buy my house. I can pay my bills. So definitely, I feel like it is the right choice for me, and it always has been.
When you were younger, were there other people in your life that maybe said certain things to you or gave you affirmations that this could be something that you may want to do? Like, were there certain things about your personality or how you looked? Or
I think I've always been a very bubbly, open person. Not anyone around my family, just kind of something that I knew. I feel like it's a calling, definitely, for me. And everyone, when I came out, was very supportive. My whole family, no one. So I'm very blessed about that too.
I was a very judgmental child and a very judgmental young adult too. I look back at old Facebook statuses that come up that's just like, you know, talking about how, you know, so-and-so came to school wearing denim panties today and shaming other women. And I was quite conservative with my thinking. And even in my day-to-day life, like, I dress pretty conservatively. And I still to this day never drank alcohol, never done any kind of drugs. I didn't start swearing until I turned 21. Like,
I don't drink alcohol either. Interesting.
Yeah.
Like people just assume we're always like partying or we're
Oh,
like
no.
yeah.
Not with my medication.
Stereotype.
I literally like going to the ballet and the opera. That's literally
Antidepressants.
Yeah, I was very judgmental, and I'm also asexual, so it was not an industry I expected to fall into. It happened by accident. My one act of rebellion was posting a nude on the internet. I thought it would last, 5 hours on the internet. Within the first hour, it went viral. Millions of people had seen it. My family knew about it. People from middle school reaching out. Cat was out of the bag.
Ooh, really?
So there was, my friends and family had reached out, like, what are you going to do now? Like, this is going to ruin your life. And, of course, I, being a very to-the-book kind of person, didn't know what to do. And people on the internet was like, where's more? I'm like, there is no more. And they're like, what's your Patreon? I'm like, what's Patreon? They're like, we'll pay you for it. I'm asexual. I don't consume porn myself. So, like, I didn't know this was an industry that made money. So I ran with it, and I thought, like all memes, it would go on the internet, it'd stick around for a couple of months, and then it'd be history. But that was like 7 or 8 years ago, so. And I'm a lot more open and accepting of a person than I ever was. I think it really introduced me to people with such different lifestyles for myself.
For me, I said that I never envisioned I would ever be somebody's pastor. I wanted to do music and be famous. I wanted to tour the world. I wanted to perform on stages, and I actually did do a little bit of that. I was signed to a record label for quite some time, and then, just life, right? I wanted to party, and I did. I did all the things, and I loved it. But there's just this like emptiness every night before I went to bed. Every night, it was just this weight and this depression of feeling like, is this it? Mm-hmm. I know there's more, because I shouldn't feel this way. I had an encounter with some evil forces, evil spirits. People experience sleep paralysis and see things in their rooms all the time. Like, I had experiences. Mm-hmm. And then the Lord, I grew up in a Christian home, and so the Lord spoke to me and he said, all the gifts, all the dreams you have are good. I gave them to you. The desire to be before people, the desire to dance and sing, I gave that to you. But what the enemy does is he perverts it. Let me show you what you're supposed to do to bring me glory. And then he started to show me women, daughters, children, that at the end of the night, when all the voices are gone, when all the people are gone, what's there? That's where I want to meet the person. And that's what he did with me. And then it's like, now, when you encounter God, you're changed. The desires of old leave. You have new desires, new tastes. And so now I'm a pastor now. I would have never guessed it. But now I sing worship. I sing songs that will silence the noise, silence the chaos, and just bring you to a place of, okay, God, show me who I am. Show me who you are. And he does, and he will, So he did that. He turned it all around.
So all the traits that you had, your beauty, your gifts,
was always
all
for
these
him.
things that you were using
For
the world.
Because in the industry, they tell you the color of your hair, how to eat, how to talk, how to dress, what songs to sing, who to be friends with, who to date. And so because you're being crafted into this person, your morals, they change, and you become more giving to these things that you realize there's nothing left for you. And now you don't even recognize yourself, for me personally. And I was just, who am I? I'm doing things I would have never done.
Like, it's so perfect to say because I've experienced all of that, but while doing this, which is like, is that, you know, you don't think that God can work in someone's life doing something that might be godly, but I'm telling you, like, God has, I feel like this is my what I'm meant to do since like a young age without even knowing yet, with no influence, no nothing. And at 31, this is where my journey led me, and I don't think it's gonna fall short yet. So I just wanted to comment because you're speaking that, and I'm feeling it because I do have God in my life. And I do not feel he's gonna do me wrong for the decisions I may make, because it truly to me feels like it's what I'm meant to do. All the signs and how it all worked, without this, like, I wouldn't be able to care for my daughter and all the things that it's brought me to do. And I found along that way a loving boyfriend that supports everything that I do. I would have never thought I would find love being a corn star. Wow. I kind of was like, hey, I went through that breakup, whatever. This is what I'm meant to do. I'm gonna do it, and whoever's gonna come into my life will come into my life. I'm at that point. I have my daughter, that's my main focus.
Let me ask you this, have you asked God that question?
Yes.
Okay, did you give me an
I have
answer?
asked him, and it brought me here because, like, when I had to make, I'm gonna be honest, like, I was like so broke, and I was in like, with my baby father. He wasn't very supportive financially when I lost my job. And I stole a pair of diapers, because I really need diapers. And I remember just being like, God, like, I need help.
Yeah.
I need help, and I need to find a way to make money quick.
Yeah.
And to get me out of this situation. And if it wasn't me getting into OnlyFans and that opportunity, I wouldn't be here with you guys. I was in this relationship where I lost myself.
Yeah.
And now I have a gift that I'm like, this is gonna be okay. And I thank God for that. I know I might not be one to be like, oh, I'm Christian, I'm this, because it comes with a lot of judgment. But man, do I have faith. I have that faith, and I have that faith, and I have that peace.
Well,
and it's something that I feel like, and I'm sure you girls know what I'm talking about, because even it's not on a religious purpose, you have that peace in you that you just know, hey, I'm here for a reason, and it's okay. So I just really wanted to comment on that.
That was yes. Thank you.
It's okay. No, I'm in a good place.
Yeah.
I would be okay with my child doing sex work. Okay, let's hear from you.
I would be okay with my child being whatever it is they want to be, as long as they are practicing it safely and consensually. Personally, for me, sex work changed my life. It saved my life, to be real. I was unhoused. I did not have the situation I was in. It helped get me out of the hole that I needed to get out of. It also has given me so much joy in creation. I don't think there is a sin in sex work and creation, especially. There are way worse things I'd worry about my child becoming than becoming a sex worker. I don't understand any negative connotation of sex work at all in general, honestly. Like those negative connotations come from external things. Do I want my child to get bullied and shamed and stigmatized? No. But what I can do is I can work for a world that is less shameful, that is less stigmatized, and has better opinions about people like me. And that's by doing things like getting on here and getting on my soapbox and being vulnerable. I think the bravest thing a person can be is to be. So if my child is gay or trans or a sex worker or whatever it is, or whatever the hell they want to be, it's really none of my business except to continually push forward and make them choose joy, as long as it's done safely.
Thank you.
You want them happy.
I'm going to change my answer.
Okay.
Actually. I had it as no, but after what you said, I'm going to flip it to yes.
Oh, that's
the reason why I had it as no is not because I think anything's inherently wrong with, like, an adult child of yours pursuing the adult industry, but I had no because I am child-free. But that kind of brought up a good point when you said I'd be okay with my, kid being trans or gay or whatever. If you ask the question, would you be okay with your child being trans? I wouldn't have thought, oh, I'm child-free, I'm not going to have kids. I'd just be like, yeah, that'd be fine. But for some reason, when thinking about it from like a adult creator perspective, I was just like, oh, I'm not having kids, so I don't even have to think about that. So,
Yes.
Well, my story is a little different because I was exposed to porn at a very early age. And for me, it sent me into a spiral. I struggled with my insecurities and all of the things I struggled with as a little girl because I didn't have someone to give me proper context, and I was exposed to these things and I did not understand what I was seeing. And so it made me very curious to things that I wish I would have had proper language and guidance for. Being exposed to something like that and not knowing my value really hurt me as a child because I didn't value my body because no one taught me that. I just saw, all of this
our body.
online for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't know the value of my body. I thought, oh, this meant love. So let me go do this. And that's what I did. And it just created some really unhealthy patterns and cycles in my life that I've had to just really break free from, thankfully for my faith. So because of my experience as a child and what I've had to struggle with because of some of the things I was exposed to prematurely, then I wouldn't want my child to experience things like that or be associated with it because of the damage it did for me.
well, I guess what would your response be like if your child ended up being an adult creator at an age where, it's clearly well into adulthood after their brain is already fully developed? If they had that conversation with you, what would
That's
that
what
look
I was
like?
gonna say is I said it's fine, but I would want it to be over 25 probably. I wouldn't be okay with, I wouldn't want but I would still want my 18-year-old to get married. I wouldn't want my 18-year-old to do any and make any decision that could have very long-term consequences that their brain is not yet developed to fully understand. I'm also a big proponent of education, so I'd want them to go, to school or do something and then decide if this is the path they want to take, because I don't think that there's any negative stigma with it, but I wouldn't be okay with my my 16-year-old. I can't wait till I'm 18 to do this. I wouldn't probably. So I agree with that, yeah.
But what's interesting is when you're living a life for God, there is no age cap. So I would be okay with my 5-year-old being and speaking to people and loving on people. I would be okay with that. And then also there's sex is not a sin. That's not the sin. What happens is, because we talk about God all the time, people don't realize that there's an enemy as well. There's evil. We see evil and chaos throughout the world. There is an actual force that's behind that, and we forget to talk about it, and we want to blame God for these things. But sex is not the sin. Sex is intentional. It's for a reason. And for me, just a quick story. I never orgasmed until with my husband, and I have a whole, body count. Okay, I really do. But I was performing for just stay with me, just be with me, keep my bed warm, you know what I mean? And how God showed me this is what sex was supposed to be. And I experienced that with my husband. So I'm not saying that sex is a sin, that's not it, but there's so much more than how it's been commercialized. There's so much more.
I feel like porn is often the scapegoat, but really what it is the conversations, what you were saying, it was you were exposed to content that you didn't understand. At the end of the day, there wasn't someone to explain it to you, because I feel like across the board we've all seen porn as kids. It just kind of happens when you're a kid and there's the internet, and it's really up to our parents and the people around us to guide how we feel about sexuality and how we educate ourselves about it. Am I having sex with someone that respects me? At the end of the day, that's the final question you ask yourself before you get into any dynamic, whether it's for money or for fun or for love. That's just what it is. And I feel like oftentimes we use porn as the enemy when really it's just kind of how do we feel about sex? How do we feel about the way it's consumed?
There is a spiritual component to sex that cannot be ignored. No? Oh, yes.
Well, I think too, when God created sex, He created a man and a woman within the context of marriage so that you have that love and that loyalty and that faithfulness. So you're being fed and nourished spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And I think nowadays it's kind of turned into recreation and let's just do this for fun. But in the end, I think the Bible talks about that we're destroying our own soul. So spiritually, it's bringing you down. Now, as a former teacher, because it was so hard getting money as a pastor in the ministry, as a woman, I used to work at a school that was right there on Figueroa in Los Angeles, and I saw, the prostitutes along there, and it broke my heart. I was at an elementary school, and it just broke my heart that these girls were kind of destroying their lives. They had very bad home lives, and instead of building them up and healing, and I know I have a lot of wounds as a child, and God came and He healed my heart of those wounds because I served Him and I honored Him. So I wanted Him to take control of my life, and I wanted Him to do it His way. So I surrendered to Him.
I feel like a lot of this is coming from just, what we assume, which at the end of the day, we will really never really know how someone else feels about their journey. You can't just look at somebody on the outside and be like, oh, she's so miserable. She's so sad because what? She's on the street in a cute outfit?
So I think that's what this question is
I know,
addressing.
and that's what I'm going towards, because we have to realize too, being in our industry, this is a job. So we as women in this profession are able to separate having sex as a job where we're paid on camera in a full-blown like this, you know what I mean, maybe less people, versus when we go home and have that spiritual connection with the one we love. We are able to still have that.
I think it's in the Western worldview, you separate categories like spiritual, physical, sacred, secular, etc. But I think where I come from, the global South, all things are spiritual. So a Buddhist or a Hindu, everything is spiritual, right? Relationships to the way you do life, all of that. So I think for me, when I say I believe in Jesus and I want to follow Him and do what He says, I think it's kind of driven out of that space where it's not a specific category for me. So for me, sex is spiritual. And I think when I say spiritual too, I think it's not like a mystical, separated from human type of space, but something that really forms and is from love. And I think for me, when I think of sex, I would say like the deep need or desire is love. I want to love and to be loved.
So something I do hear pastors speaking quite about when it comes to sex is the spiritual connection that you may have with a person when you have sex with them, maybe when they're not your husband, that stays with the person after that encounter because it was more than just a physical act. Is that something that any of you have
Well, like the soul
heard about?
ties. So
I've heard
about
terminology like that before.
that if you have sex with somebody that there's a soul tie, you become one with them. And so there is a connection, so it plays on your mind, and there's a desire for love, a desire for them. A lot of times, sometimes we believe like the enemy, like a spirit of darkness can get a hold of you. You were talking about deliverance, and so we know that some people need prayer and get delivered from evil spirits that came in through sin.
With my experience when talking with Christians and sex, as a sex worker, I don't have sex with people outside of my husband, and even with my husband, it's not on camera. That's like a part of my life that I keep private. But I feel like the most judgment that I get about sexuality in general is less about me being a sex worker and more about me being an asexual sex worker. And I've been asexual my whole life. I've only been a sex worker for like 7 years. And I feel like when I have conversations with a lot of Christians, especially when they're a lot more fundamentalists, they have this perspective that I have to serve my husband and that the amount of sex that I have with them and my connection to sex on a spiritual level, means that we're a bad fit for each other, or, that I'm a bad wife, that I'm not giving him the amount of sex that he needs. And people tend to think sex workers are like hypersexual, just messing around like rabbits. But that's the opposite case for me. I mean, I only have sex a few times a year. But the most criticism that I get is not really from people in the sex work world, but it's usually from Christians on, you know, I don't feel like it's anyone's business how much sex anyone is having, whether it's a lot or it's none at all.
So they assume that you're having a lot of sex with your husband and they have comments about that? Or
Because I'm a sex worker, people tend to assume that I have a bunch of sex.
Oh, I see.
But when people find out I'm a sex worker, then it's just like, you know, I don't serve my husband. The fact that I am a sex worker must be the reason why I don't have a lot of sex in my own personal marriage. And that's not related at all.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
I just wanted to say sorry on behalf of the church that you felt judged. I don't think that's the heart of Christianity or the heart of the God we believe in and the God that we represent. So I just wanted to say sorry.
Most people that I know that were religious, you know, they've left the church in some way, and a lot of it is just from feeling ostracized from like the relentless shaming, right? And it's like the judgment, the shame of like, it's like what I was going back earlier, like are we really like preserving spirituality or are we preserving power? You know, especially like the Bible is written by men. It's been, you know, reinterpreted multiple times. It's been retranslated into several different ways. It's, you know, there's so many things about it that are arbitrary. Some of it is metaphor, you know, some people take what literally, and a lot of it serves men, you know, and so when I like regard like things like spirituality and then we connect it to like how promiscuous I am, it almost feels completely irrelevant because I, you know, when I have sex with someone, I mean it, whether it's casual or whether it's like in love, or whether it's for work, there's that contextual responsibility that I have agency because again, I'm not religious, so there's no God in the picture for me. For me, when I have sex, it's just me and the other party, and us just enjoying it. Because when I have sex, I view it as play. And then when I think about sex, and I think about like, oh, I'm like losing my soul because I'm doing it for money or because I've had sex with so many people. Who does that serve? Men. I don't fucking care about that.
It's the same on the opposite end. Like when I'm not having sex at all, you know, and then people face you and are like, well, you need to be serving your husband, you know. At what point does that become consensual sex versus feeling like I'm selling myself, or, you know, serving someone else versus, you know, serving our relationship? Like at what point does that start to feel like non-consensual sex?
And that's why I agree to the spirituality on this, because I have separated myself from the church. I say, you know, I believe in my God, not really, I don't designate it with Christian, but whatever. And it's solely based on faith. That feeling that I get, that faith, that peace, that I know we all could feel if you are spiritual without no labels, no nothing, no books. It's, at the end of the day, a feeling. And this journey has been a spiritual journey for me because I could feel that. Regardless if we use sex or my work or whatever to kind of shadow that, it still leads to the one thing. There is this spirituality in me. Do I call it God? Do I call it this? Whatever, higher power. You know, it works for me.
The Christian community often fails to approach discussions about sex with love and understanding.
I'm not happy about it. That's a weird face.
Okay, thank you.
Personally, me and my husband talk about sex all the time. I mean, it's natural. It's ordained by God. I mean, that's how we get people, right? You have to have sex to get people. So we talk about it all the time. My parents could have done a better job at teaching me how to discern people and who's for you and who's not for you. So otherwise, I wouldn't have dated half the guys I dated. So as a whole, I think, at least in America, we could do better, but there are congregations that are talking about sex. You're not going to see, like I hear this phrase all the time, planes that land safely are not reported. You only hear about the airplane crashes. You're not going to hear about the good work that's actually being done. So that's unfortunate, but the conversations are being had. I just wish that they were shared through the world, and you're seeing that. You're seeing more people come out and sharing these and being able to have these discussions. But for me, I think that we still do it and we still talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I remember going to church when I was younger. It was always save yourself till marriage and very minimal comments afterwards.
Especially about gay sex.
Yes, exactly. And it's one of those things, I think it's a touchy subject, you know, and in a way, it comes from, I think, a good place, but it does fail. How many younger girls with probably religious parents end up pregnant due to misinformation about birth control and things like that? If maybe they came from
very rural religious
exactly.
areas.
If maybe that family if the Christian community did empower their women more to be open to talk about those conversations and not act like your kids aren't hooking up. You know what I mean? Like, come on. We all get those feelings once our hormones kick in. So I feel like definitely let's not make it an awkward topic, something that, we need to talk about. Even my mom being a Christian woman, when she heard I was sexually active at the age of 13, she put me straight on birth control. So, I mean, congrats to her. She understood, but there is a lot of the parents that I remember growing up with their kids where they couldn't even have that conversation. It was like taboo. And it's definitely something I feel as the Christian community, they should look into that. Maybe we'll save themselves a lot of that child pregnancies and all that going on.
Thank you. Yeah.
And when I feel like I have been in the church, like what you said, I feel like there was just such a lack of education. I remember so many of my peers that were in the church, getting pregnant, like like being teenagers, because regardless of whether we like to address it or not, our hormones are happening. And if those people had the proper education and guidance, and it doesn't necessarily mean like promoting being sexually active at a young age. It's about understanding does this add anything to your self-esteem? No, it doesn't. Like, is there a time and place for it? And is there a way for you to do it safely if you are going to do it? Because I feel like there were so many lives that could have had an easily different trajectory had there been more education and also just more empathy from the church. I remember a lot of those girls that would get pregnant would get ostracized and they would leave the church, and it's kind of like, then what the hell happens to them? Then it's like a much harder path, and then I feel like a lot of Christians wonder where did all these people go? And it's like you hurt them.
I would rather sleep with so many of my followers rather than one of my exes because they respect me and treat me with so much more humanity than some of the people I've been sexually active with in the past. And my body count is 4, and I'm married, so.
Talking with the pastors, in terms of the education that the church gives on the Bible, waiting until you're married, the women who do wait until they're married, but then have no idea what to do as a wife, how to have sex with their husband, what's expected. Do you think that there is enough education?
I don't think there is enough education. I think there needs to be more preaching and teaching, whether it's from the pulpit or it's classes. I know one pastor at one point, he sent all the children out and he had a heart-to-heart with his congregation regarding sex and marriage, and you need that.
If you have a congregation, people are willing to listen because this is what you're saying is the right thing, they feel conviction. There are some women who will even say that once they got married, they had so much shame about sex before marriage that now they can't break that and have sex properly with their husband. But
and the
if
Bible
it's not being taught at the
says
church,
that the marriage bed is undefiled. So whatever you do within that context of marriage. And when I got married, I realized that my covenant was not only with my husband, but my covenant was with God, and that I had to keep that covenant with God. And so that really impressed upon me, and that's why it's like my devotion to one person within that spiritual context. But again, the marriage bed is undefiled. So whatever you want to do, you can do it,
I would say, I believe as a Christian community, we need to embrace the message of love and acceptance across the board. I think that's one of the challenges that many people have with the idea of the church and Christianity, because we feel like whatever the topic is, there's no love and acceptance. And that's not the message of Christ. Like, he sat and hung out with everybody. And so when I think about this message, I'm like, man, this goes far beyond sex. Like, yes, this is a part of it, but my heart is like, I wish more people knew. But I was that person too. I was like, oh, I don't want to deal with church people. I was like, so it took me some time, and the Lord had to show me, Brittany, I'm calling you to be something different. I know you've had these experiences and other people have had these experiences, but I want when people meet you to say, I met one Christian girl that wasn't like the rest of the Christian girls. She talked to me, she complimented me, she didn't judge me for what I did, she just met me where I was. And so that's what my ministry is about. Like if I focus on what other people have done that have not represented the God that I know I've encountered, then I would get discouraged, because I used to get discouraged. Like, I still do now. Like, Christians, why are y'all treating other people like that? But now I realize, like, I want to be that difference. I want to show women, like, God loves you. It doesn't matter what you do, how many times. Let's just start there. Hey, sis, God loves you. Where are you going to go eat? Let's start there. Like, I don't even, when I minister to people, I don't talk to them about what they do or what they don't. I just want to get to know you for who you are. I've enjoyed this conversation of just learning about you all, your perspectives, your boldness. I'm like, okay, girls, like, I can learn some things, and that doesn't mean, so I think that's the conversation even more, just love and acceptance. Jesus loved and accepted. And once you're brought in, then he starts doing all of these things in us. And, when I came into the faith, there were two things I was not giving up. I was not giving up my money or my man. And I was like, y'all can get the rest. But my man, I'm keeping him, and this church ain't getting none of my money. And so I kept going and just kept growing in my personal, not religion, but personal relationship. Just, I'm not trying to do what other people do. Let me just figure this thing out on my own. Started praying and just, taking my personal journey. And then I started realizing some of the things I were doing, I didn't want to do them anymore. And I was like, what's wrong with me, But I was changing, but it was because of that love and that acceptance first. I think we need that first, but a lot of times we're trying to modify behavior without accepting people and receiving them for where they are, who they are, and then letting the change go from there.
Would you ladies mind switching sides with one another for 1 week?
1 week is fine. 1 week is cool.
So I would mind.
Yeah.
Just based on what you said.
I would mind.
I wouldn't mind.
I can see her.
I don't think it's for me, but also it's not for everyone.
Yeah, I would be a horrible, I don't know anything about I wouldn't, it would be useless.
I don't know either, but I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Come on, girl.
I'd be a really off-kilter pastor, but for a week is fine.
Probably a no for me.
It's a no, but it's a yes if I get to take my mind over there.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Where does it go?
Again, I would say no. I just wouldn't, it wouldn't work for me.
How my heart is set up, I just love everybody. I just want to take them home. I just.
I want to thank all of you ladies for being here today and sharing your stories and your perspectives in your lives about your journeys. I hope that this conversation was helpful to you, and I thank you all for watching, and I hope that you're able to leave a comment and share things that you may have connected with the ladies who spoke today. And until next time, bye-bye.